Hooray! Here
I
we
was
are.
not prepared.
That's all right. That's all right. Welcome. Welcome to everyone who's watching, and welcome Chris to joining our Dungeon Master deep dive with D&D in a Castle. You were not prepared for how epic our video was, or you were not prepared technically?
Technically, I was like mid doing my announcements and stuff. I was like, oh, I forgot to do like my Instagram ones and yeah, hi. This is also just not
Hello.
normally the time I stream on any of my other like platforms. So I'm like, hey guys, just like do me a favor and just like chill for a sec. Hang out.
Well, hopefully they'll join in as they discover that we're here and that we're chatting about D&D in a Castle. So for those joining us, I am here with Chris Hamasu, who is coming to the castle to run a game of Dungeons and Dragons at D&D in a Castle this fall in November. And we're super excited to have you. And I want to hear all about what you have planned for your 6 players for their epic game at D&D in a Castle.
Oh boy. Well, it is a game called Soul Survivor. It's been like a concept I've been throwing around in my brain for the better part of like a year or so. The finer points of which I still probably should get to before, I get on a plane all the way to the UK. But the basic premise is that, far along in the future, after all these adventuring parties have done whatever it is they need to do, the afterlife itself has essentially closed its doors just because of how many people there are in existence, and they're constantly dying, coming back, what have you. So since that happened, people can't die, so instead they're just floating about as aimless spirits, and the party will be a group of these aimless spirits being pursued by the Raven Queen, who, in an attempt to kind of maintain balance, is just wiping these spirits off the map. Um, so it's a lot of just, it's kind of like a break-in, I want to say. It's like breaking and entering, but into the afterlife so that you can rest eternally in splendor, or, maybe you break into hell and that's just where you live now.
Very nice. Well, wonderful. So have you done this kind of thing before, or will this be a first time into this foray into this type of world?
I would say I've definitely done a handful of like, not so much like nondescript, but like non-traditional campaign settings that are not just like you meet in a tavern and then you fight a dragon and you get money for it or what have you. So I think I'm not really differing too much there. But I think it's definitely different from a lot of the other stuff that I've done. I think in terms of the D&D like mythos or the stories people like to tell, it's usually let's avoid dying. Uh,
Right.
so in this, having the main goal being to die well is really interesting, at least to me.
Cool. And so this does sound like quite a different kind of, it's not your typical dungeon crawl, or pinned on the typical kinds of encounters. What kinds of things can people expect in a game like that?
Um, I would say a lot of facing your own mortality, I suppose. I think a lot of the main themes of this game will be, how do you really come to terms with the fact that you are gone and what it is you're supposed to do after the fact. It's probably going to tackle a lot of the like D&D, I guess not really cosmology, but as it pertains to like the gods and the several different afterlives that exist. So, whatever afterlife they decide to break into will probably have the campaign will form around that, from lack of a better term. But I think it's a lot of just facing death and just, having a good time.
And what kind of game, like what kind of vibe is this game going to be? Is it going to be sort of a hijinksy kind of over the top type of game? Is it going to be dark? Is it going to be like emotionally, uh, evocative? What kind of vibe do you bring to your game?
In a way, I'd say all of the above, oddly enough. I think I do my best as a DM to balance the like very funny haha nature of playing a tabletop game where you have these ridiculous characters, and balancing that with like the very true and almost humanity-driven stories that exist within the tabletop space. So it'll be a lot of finding, I guess, the light in the dark, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting a couple of comments on the stream. Just lots of welcome, hello, how are things? Just subscribed to your channels. Great to have you here. Thank you to everybody who's watching. We're as I mentioned, we're talking with Chris Hamasu, who's coming to the Indiana Castle in November to run a 4-day campaign with 6 lucky players. And if you want to learn more about that, you can scan the QR code in the corner or just visit dinacastle.com and keep clicking till you find us, basically, or feel free to drop us any questions. If you do have questions for us at Indiana Castle, for Chris about his game, about his game generally, about him as a dungeon master, or also about his game at Indiana Castle, please drop them in the chat and we will get to them. Chris, what made you want to come to D&D in the Castle? What are you looking forward to about D&D in the Castle?
Hard to say. I mean, it's really all right there. It's just D&D in a castle. I've never been able to really visit a whole lot of like cool places. Like I've traveled for cons and, the occasional vacation, but I think this is probably one of the like biggest trips I think that I've personally gone on or will go on, because, I've just been chilling for as much freedom as being a content creator allows me. I haven't really been able to make use of that. Like I'm my own boss. I don't have vacation days because every day is kind of a vacation day, but I don't have a boss in the sense that I can just go to wherever as long as like money allows. So I think being able to go to this has been a really interesting opportunity. I'm really excited to, I guess, see what else is out there.
And what do you know about D&D in a Castle that makes you want to come and be part of it?
I think the community for one. I mean, outside of just it's a castle. I get to see a castle and hang out in a castle and eat and sleep and play D&D in a castle. So that's been a major driving point. But I think overall being able to see just how, I guess, like diverse and vast the D&D community is, and how all these different DMs are coming in here with their own like interesting stories that like I am personally really excited to see how that plays out. Aside from running my own, I'm I might just peek in and be like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we often say, you come for the D&D, but you stay for the people, because people find their people at D&D in a Castle, it not just passionate D&D players, although everyone who comes largely is, but people who are committed to having fun here in this kind of way. It's sort of a shared commitment to this kind of fun, and that's really a wonderful bonding experience. As you mentioned, there are a lot of different dungeon masters that come to our castle, all with different stories in terms of their campaigns, and also different stories in terms of who they are in terms of D&D, what their relationship to D&D is. So I have 2 questions for you about that. One of them is there's quite a few coming to the castle that you're at, and in the other D&D and Castle events. Who would you be excited to play with? Who would be your DM of choice? You can give more than one if you must.
Of the people going, or just like in general? Like if I'd be like, I choose Matthew Mercer. I think
of the dungeon masters on our roster that we have, who would be your pick or picks?
Honestly, I don't know. I love just playing in general. In terms of like people that I'm at least familiar with, I know that Alec is going.
Yeah.
I've been in like a handful of games and one shots and stuff that he's run, and I've had a blast every time. So I'd probably be like, yeah, I'll join in that one. I think Haley Whipjack is going.
Haley Whipjack is coming in
Yeah.
the spring, same time as Alec. So
nice. I was in one arc of Unprepared Casters, and that was also a lot of fun. Had one of my favorite characters that I've ever played. So I think the 2 of them, it's weird to say, but like the 2 people that I have the most familiarity with are probably the people that I'd want to play with the most.
And what's your story, Chris? What's your backstory? I know you also do a lot of video gaming, I think. How did you get into D&D in particular, and how did you get into DMing? What drew you to both?
Oh boy. Well, what got me into the game. Oh my, it was like back in high school in like freshman, sophomore year. There was like a big tree that like me and all my friends would hang out around. So like we would often just sort of waste our time in between classes. And for whatever reason, I guess the nerdiest amongst us, my friend Evan, approached was like, "Hey, do you guys want to try D&D?" I'm like, "Absolutely, I do. What is it?" Um, and so as we kind of got geared up to, I guess, play that game, we I ended up watching a lot of Critical Role,
Mm,
and so for the first like 2 campaigns that I ran, 2, 3 campaigns, it was very Matthew Mercer-esque in the sense that I would just kind of take whatever they were doing. I'm like, "Yep, that's that. I'm doing that now." So it took like a little bit, I would say, to I guess find my DM voice of like the kind of stories I want to tell and how I want to tell them, uh, which I guess also ties in really well to a lot of the content that I make, which is the biggest, I guess, proponent of my like highest view source is these things called totally original characters, which is just playing a guessing game of like this is a D&D character that is clearly based off of something else, but like there are aspects to it and there's a depth to it that people need to understand if you are going to play a character that is just a different character. So that's been something I've been trying to, I guess, advocate for in the space, that you don't have to be original, you just have to be authentic.
right, right. And so you started out doing the dungeon mastering in those high school days.
I did. With no experience, I guess I was the de facto DM, and this is I guess just a detail that I get a kick out of now because of, I try not to run games with as many people, but my first game that I ever ran with no experience had 13 people in it. Because we would just go around to all of our friends and be like, "Do you want to play D&D?" And they're like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Just show up at my house. You don't have to
Yeah.
worry about it. We don't know what it is either, but like you'll have fun. We promise, probably." So we ended up with 13 people in my house one day, and I had to balance all of them learning it, me learning it, and whatever the story was. I think it was like going deep underground to like figure out why the well is all messed up, but it was a fun time.
Well, clearly, it has become a big part of your life going forward. So I think that's a story for a lot of people, was knock on everyone's doors and do you want to play D&D? We don't know what we're doing, but it will be a lot of fun. And I think that's the spirit that we try to keep at D&D in a Castle. You said you took some time to find your voice and the kind of stories that you want to tell. What kind of stories do you want to tell? What is your voice?
I think it's definitely changed over time. I think I went from more like, I guess, broader lessons, things that I wanted to advocate for in the space, which uh not I say at first like I'm not still kind of doing this, but it was a lot of Asian representation in the game because D&D is very Eurocentric. You got the
Mhm.
castles, the dragons, what have you. So I would always tailor my like campaign settings, my games, my stories towards values found in like Japanese media because I am Japanese. So a lot of it would have to do with how Japan views like certain like actions. There's a sense of like decorum that you have to have when you deal with individual people, especially those with higher station than yourself. And as that developed, I got to meet a bunch of really cool people and helped me to sort of realize a lot of my own identity through these games, which then I guess like focus what I was doing into what I do now, which is a lot more personal stories, I'd say. I'm not trying to like paint with broad strokes as much anymore. It now has like very specifically to do with things that I myself have experience with. One of my latest games that has complete the whole like shebang that I've finished editing and posting was The Worst Heroes You Know, which was essentially a whole like diatribe of my experience as a content creator in the space and the various people that I've met and the challenges I've had to overcome as somebody who doesn't necessarily see D&D as one thing or the other, where a lot of people are like, this is a very serious game and it has to be serious all the time. And then the others are like, I am playing Danny DeVito and we're going to go fight Gordon Ramsay. So having that balance for me is like, I'm not really sure where I fit in, but I'll figure it out at some point.
I want to see Danny DeVito fight Gordon Ramsay. That's that's a picturing an amazing scene for me to have in my head rent free. Thank you for that. My question is, what kind of player do you think is gonna love your game? Some people, really heavy on combat. Some people like really get into the role play. Some people get, what kind of what? Who do you think because what we like to do at D&D in a Castle, just to give a little context, we love people to run their game. That is their game. The game, we don't give them, it has to do this, it has to be like that. There's no, it has to be D&D. But, it's the game that you want to run, and that people are coming to get your game that you do. They want to do your thing. And so who do you think that player is? And that would be a player is going to get a lot out of your game, who's going to really love what you're running.
I think the kind of person who would really enjoy my game is anybody who really likes like heavy role play, very specific like story elements. I try to incorporate the backstories of whoever's playing and kind of weave that into the game itself, so it feels like, it's a world that your character has lived in. It doesn't just begin and end where we begin and end at the table. It is this whole sort of, it's like a brief, look into what this world is. So I think people who enjoy role play aren't too heavy on like rules. I'm not the biggest combat person. I don't know if that's controversial to say in the D&D space, but it's never really interested me in being like, my math is better than your math. So there will definitely be some of it included, because, there obviously has to be. But I think people who are in it more for the narrative aspect as opposed to the strictly mechanical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You're not the only one who says that, about the role play being more important than the combat, and people have different opinions. In your view, what would you say is a great game of D&D? When you come away from a game of D&D and you're like, that was a great game, what do you think made it a great game?
Hard to say. I think what makes a good D&D game is it's something that like sticks with you. There is some relevance to what you're going through in, your day-to-day life. There is this like, I guess, bleed, for lack of a better term. It's
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're invested emotionally into a game, it's probably what makes it as good as it is, because you can do your math and whatever, but like, you've built up this huge narrative, this story arc, these connections, and having that have like a good resolution, having like something that truly encapsulates what the experience is all about, which is having fun and making something together.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of the format of D&D and Castle campaign, have you played in that kind of type of intense structure before? So it's a little different from, say, a one shot. A lot of people run one shots, say at cons or just wherever. You might get a one-time game, and then you have your long, ongoing campaigns that people play for months or years or whatever. At D&D in the Castle is sort of taking at least several months worth of content, once you count in all the cancellations and people having to leave early and failing to show up, and all of the catching up and the ordering pizza. That happens. You take the actual gaming part. It's basically a 6-shot, more or less, but played very intensively, where you're just playing D&D, breaking for meals, maybe giving the DM a break sometimes, and going off and doing some other fun stuff around the castle. But basically, it's eat, sleep, roll dice. Like that's what we do. Have you, in say in your youth, when you would just come home Friday and game until Monday, was that a thing? Have you done that before?
Yeah, that kind of puts it succinctly. Yeah. So when I was in high school, we had like our specific group. We would meet every, I think, Saturday around like 12, and then we'd play till 12 that night. But in like the rare occasions, there were times when we would just stay in the room for, days on end. Maybe not that aggressively, but we would stay like overnight, sometimes into the next day, of just playing dice. Some of us would just sleep under the table because, why not? So like occasionally if your turn would come up and you're asleep, someone would just like kick you and be like, hey, you got to do a thing. But we'd often have these like longs. I don't, now that you mention it, I don't know if I have it in me as like as a greatly aging 25-year-old, slowly creeping towards the afterlife myself. I can't say for certain how that'll go, but I think it'll be a very interesting challenge, and it'll bring me back to my roots. I am bringing so many energy drinks.
We have energy drinks are provided in free
Oh, thank God.
supply to everyone who comes to D&D in the Castle. There is an unending supply of energy drinks and snacks in your gaming room so that you can just keep going forever. I will say, for those who aren't familiar with our structure at D&D in a Castle, it's a 4-night vacation in a castle, all inclusive, where you get to play an epic campaign over the days. You play 2 4-hour sessions a day, so you do get time off, and we let our dungeon masters, go to bed eventually. Sometimes their players don't let them go to bed, but we do. they are allowed to sleep sometimes. So it's and it goes. The feedback I get from people a lot who've done this several or many times is just how quickly it goes. You don't, I mean, that's the real core thing of what you get at D&D in a Castle is time to play. We set everything up to allow for the greatest game, and usually my experience at least is that in D&D people run out of time. It's time that is the limiting factor. So we try to cut out everything about the world around that could possibly eat your time and give you back the time to just play. You don't have to cook. You don't have to clean up. You don't have to go home to relieve the babysitter. You don't have to go to work. You're on vacation. You just get to game, and people, they fly through that time. And what we hear people say a lot is, I've never gotten to the end of a campaign before. So we give people a chance to have a beginning, middle, and end of a complete story in a set period of time and go on an adventure together. We're getting some comments. I'm sorry, you're 25. I thought you were 18. Or
such is the way of things. I've been bullied by TikTok, the actual platform, who has on many occasions, when I was the young age of 21 to 22, and they'd be like, "Are you 12?" I'm like, "No, I can legally drink. I am driving my car to the store." And they'd be like, "Nah, you seem too young. We're banning you for like whatever." I'm still salty about this. I will have my vengeance. But
Chris is a grown-up. He is an adult. Despite his face, he is a grown-up dungeon master and a professional, and you can come and play a game of D&D in his amazing world, in one of his custom stories that will be unlike any game you have played before. I'm going to make that promise to you. If you want to learn more about D&D in a Castle and about this game, you can scan the QR code or head over to dndinacastle.com, and you can join in the vacation of a lifetime, vacation beyond imagination, and an incredible campaign with Chris as your dungeon master, or any of our dungeon masters at D&D in a Castle, spring, summer, or fall. Fall is when Chris is going to be here. So, Chris, I've run to the end of my questions. What do you want to tell people about you and what you're looking forward to?
Oh boy.
Well, here's a question. Where can people find you? And is there anything this is your moment for plugging.
I love that.
You have anything you want to share?
Well, I don't know, a handful of people who have shown up thus far are people who already know where I'm at. But if by some metric there is the wayward soul who has hopped into this live and don't know who I am, I'm Chris, or Hamasamakun. That's HAMASAMAKUN on all social media platforms. I do D&D stuff. I literally filmed one of my first long form videos right before hopping in here. I've been just editing that and slowly going insane because I did not realize this big blank wall would like change colors so drastically because of lighting. So that's something that I have to contend with. Still going a little bit crazy about that, but it will be a fun time. I stream occasionally, not as much anymore since I've been taking a break for that to do YouTube stuff. But my community still is maintained and is lovely. Miss you all dearly. Yeah, that's kind of, I'm on all social media platforms: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the other ones people downloaded when TikTok was about to be banned, but I still have them because I didn't bother getting rid of them. They're all slowly gaining like followers, and I'm like, I'm sorry, there's like nothing for you here, man. Like this is like a singular photo I posted.
People can find you there and get to know you. people often they come to watch these from our channels to sort of get a feel for our dungeon masters and see if theirs is a campaign that they would want to join. So I'm assuming that the content in there shares a little bit of your personality, a little bit of what they could expect.
Yeah,
What can we
I'd like
find
to
on
think
those
so.
channels?
Josh is new. Let's go. I think they could get a pretty solid idea of the kind of DM that I am. Um, a lot of my stuff that I do is for memes, they're thought experiments. So occasionally somebody does get mad, I guess, when I'm like, yeah, you could technically do this. I'm not gonna say you should, but you can technically do this. But overall, I think if people are interested in I guess fun over function, my game is definitely for you. Hi, Ark. Sorry, well, my best friends right there.
There's
Hello.
so many nice comments coming in here. I see somebody says some unfortunate staff is going to have to deal with a snack monster or two. I can just say at the Indiana Castle, nobody goes hungry. Like there is so much
Thank God.
snacking and there is so much food. It's like a problem. Like you have to recover
I
from deep.
will be staying. I'm just going to be the ghost that haunts the castle. If there's just snacks, then that's just the life that I
That's
decided
me,
to
like
live.
2 o'clock in the morning, just like going from room to room. Oh, there's some extra chips. I will eat those. There's some scones and clotted cream.
Nobody will know whether or not I'm actually there. I'm like, unless you're in the game with me, then you'll know for certain. But I think the rest of the DMs would be like, I don't know about you, but I saw like an Asian ghost wandering the halls of this like I don't know where this castle is, but like somewhere in the UK castle. They've just they've just been whispering the Muppets theme song as they go from room to room to steal snacks. Not even really sure why they did it.
You'll become part of the lore of the castle. There's a lot of ghosts in that lore. A lot of ghosts. It's a very
I
haunted,
remember this,
it's
yeah.
very ghosty. You a ghosty guy? You into supernatural?
I think I enjoy it. I've been known to partake in the scary vibes, but yeah, so I don't know. This is something that I guess re-entered my brain prior to this, but like as I was thinking more about the DM deep dive, but like I was hanging out with somebody and they were like, "Oh, what is this like D&D castle?" And I explained, I'm like, "So yeah, castle, castle, castle. There's a non-zero chance this place is haunted." I did not think about this as they're like, "You're gonna get attacked by ghosts," and I'm like, "I have not done a single thing to anger a ghost. The worst that I've done is." Probably just be in the castle. I think the royals are none too pleased about my presence in their home. But be respectful to ghosts. Learn that from Japanese culture. So long as you aren't mean to them, they usually don't mess with you.
Well, that's some excellent advice. We definitely have sightings, and we may not be royals, but we're very excited to have you in our castle. If it sounds like fun to come and play with Chris Hamasu at D&D Castle, you can head to dndcastle.com or scan the QR code in the corner. It's there's a lot of chat going on in the chat. You'd be like a poltergeist, but instead of harassing people by throwing lamps at them, you'd be mixing up silverware in the cupboard.
Yeah, I'm not.
Ghost drink.
I can't argue
Hashtag
with
ghost
that. Thupa at least knows. Thupa shows up in my streams so often that I think they do have a pretty decent idea of this is absolutely something I do as a ghost. I think Yeah, I think I'd be the spirit of, like, minor inconveniences. I'd be the reason that, like, your shoes are just a little bit damp due to the humidity in the air or, like, maybe you thought you had more snacks than you did, but nope, you reach in the bag and it's empty.
Love it. Love the hauntings. Snack hauntings. Hashtag snack hauntings.
Snack haunting.
Love it. Well, we're going to have a great time this fall. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to ask you to take us out of the video with an invitation to the viewers to come and join you at D&D in a Castle in the fall
Is
for
there a
your
specific
campaign.
format for this, or am I just being like,
Not at
show
all.
up, show up to the castle, so says I, Lord of the Castle. I will, in fact, be laying my claim. Uh, Whether or not this holds up in court is probably unlikely, but if you enjoy D&D, if you enjoy the concept of having fun in a group of nerds, if you enjoy games that tackle very deeply personal themes while also being the most ridiculous thing you've ever experienced, come join me, Hamasama-kun, at D&D in a Castle in the fall, which is where I will be in the fall.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Come and have your snacks haunted by Chris. Amazing. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the castle.